It was a buzzing weekday afternoon at Urban Haven Bistro, a trendy city restaurant known for its eclectic menu and vibrant atmosphere. Claire, a passionate and opinionated waitress, was in her element, balancing trays, refilling drinks, and chatting with regular customers. Known for her fiery spirit and strong principles, Claire prided herself on standing up for her values in every aspect of her life. Her day was rolling along smoothly until a man walked in wearing a hat that made her stomach churn. The man, middle-aged and composed, sported a neatly tailored navy suit and a bright red hat emblazoned with bold white letters, "Make America Great Again." Claire froze, the sight of the hat disrupting her rhythm. To her, the MAGA hat wasn't just an accessory, it was a symbol of ideologies she strongly opposed. Her face hardened as she set her tray on the counter and marched toward the booth where the man had seated himself near the window. "Good afternoon," she began, her tone clipped. "Can I help you find a seat elsewhere?" The man looked up, his expression calm but curious. "Actually, I'm comfortable right here. I'd like a menu, please." Claire tightened her grip on her notepad. "I'm sorry, sir, but I can't serve you here. You'll need to leave." The man raised an eyebrow, his voice steady and polite. "May I ask why?" "It's your hat," Claire replied, her voice firm. "It represents values that don't align with mine." The man leaned back, his gaze unwavering. "So you've decided I don't deserve service because of a hat?" Claire's frustration bubbled over. "I have a right to refuse service if I feel uncomfortable," she snapped. At that moment, Amanda, the restaurant manager, noticed the commotion and approached the table. "Is everything all right here?" she asked, her eyes darting between Claire and the man. Claire spoke up before the man could respond. "I told him I can't serve him because of his hat." Amanda blinked in surprise. "The hat?" "Yes," Claire replied, crossing her arms. "It's a symbol I can't support." Amanda turned to the man with an apologetic smile. "I'm so sorry for the inconvenience, sir. Let me take your order personally." The man smiled graciously. "Thank you. I'll have the house special and a black coffee." As Amanda walked away, Claire shot her a glare but returned to her other tables, her annoyance simmering. Meanwhile, the man quietly observed everything, making no comment. When he finished his meal, he left a generous tip for Amanda and exited the restaurant, his demeanor unbothered. Claire watched him leave, still fuming. She had no idea that the man wasn't just another customer. The truth would unfold the next day and challenge everything she believed about judgment and fairness. Claire tried to shake off her irritation as she tended to her other tables, but the interaction with the man in the red hat lingered in her mind. She carried on with her duties, but her thoughts were distracted by replaying the exchange over and over again. Was she wrong? She didn't think so. To Claire, standing up for her beliefs was non-negotiable. The restaurant's usual hum of activity was punctuated by Claire's internal turmoil. At one table, a family of 4 chatted happily as she refilled their drinks. At another, an elderly man asked for a dessert recommendation. Claire forced a smile and guided him to the chef's special, tiramisu. She moved on autopilot, her fiery spirit dulled by the weight of the incident. The pilot came on before she got a far settle, then the voice from the screen said, At the back of the restaurant, Amanda returned to the office, still processing what had happened. She opened the employee handbook, flipping through its pages for guidance. Nothing in the policies addressed refusing service based on a customer's political beliefs. She sighed, closing the book and staring out the small window overlooking the bustling street outside. Amanda couldn't shake the image of the man's calm demeanor as he faced Claire's curt refusal. Something about his composed reaction felt different. She thought about the restaurant's motto, a haven for everyone. Claire's actions today had gone against everything the Urban Haven Bistro stood for. That evening, after her shift, Claire walked home through the cool city streets. The neon signs of nearby shops and cafes lit her path, but her mind was clouded. She called her best friend, Lily, to vent. "You wouldn't believe the nerve of this guy," Claire began, her words spilling out in a rush. "He walked in with this smug look, wearing that hat, and expected me to just smile and serve him." Lily's voice crackled through the phone. "I get it, Claire, but are you sure that was the right move? What if he wasn't even that kind of person? Claire bristled. It doesn't matter. That hat says enough. But does it really? Lily pressed. I mean, what if he had his own reasons for wearing it? You always say we shouldn't judge a book by its cover. Claire scoffed, ending the conversation quickly. Lily didn't understand, and Claire didn't feel like explaining. Meanwhile, the man in the red hat, Mark Everly, sat in his high-rise apartment overlooking the city. The events of the day played in his mind as he sipped a glass of wine. Mark was no stranger to judgment. Over the years, his choice to wear the MAGA hat in public had drawn a fair share of reactions, some supportive, others outright hostile. Today, however, had felt different. There had been something in Claire's tone, something deeply personal. It wasn't just a political disagreement, it was anger, almost a visceral reaction. Mark leaned back in his chair, pondering the significance. Was it his job to make others understand him, or was their perception their responsibility? Mark smiled faintly, recalling Amanda's professional demeanor. She had handled the situation with grace. Perhaps she was the kind of leader he needed more of in his growing business. He made a mental note to reach out to her in the morning. The next day at the bistro, Amanda noticed the morning rush was unusually hectic. A large party had booked a private table for brunch, and the staff was running at full speed. Claire, however, seemed distracted, moving slower than usual and avoiding eye contact with Amanda. By mid-morning, Amanda had had enough. She pulled Claire aside into the office. "We need to talk," she said, closing the door. Claire crossed her arms. "About yesterday?" "Yes, about yesterday," Amanda said firmly. "I need to understand what was going through your mind when you refused to serve that man." Claire hesitated, weighing her words. I can't support what that hat stands for. It's not right." Amanda sighed. "Claire, this isn't about what you support or don't support. Our job is to serve customers. Period. Do you know who that man was?" No, Claire replied, frowning. "And I don't care." "Maybe you should," Amanda said, her tone sharp. "That was Mark Everly, the owner of Urban Haven Bistro." Claire's eyes widened, her arms falling to her sides. "The owner?" "Yes," Amanda said, "and he wasn't here just as a customer. He was observing, evaluating, and your behavior reflected on all of us." Claire's heart sank. She'd assumed the man was just another customer, someone she could push back against without consequences. Now, her actions felt even heavier. Amanda's voice softened. "Look, Claire, I get it. You have your beliefs, and that's fine. But when you're on the clock, you're representing this restaurant. Your personal opinions can't come before the values we stand for." I understand," Claire said quietly, but deep down she wasn't sure she did. That evening, as Claire walked home, she stopped at a bookstore she often passed by. A book in the window caught her eye, Breaking Down Barriers: How to Connect in a Divided World. On impulse, she went inside and bought it. She wasn't sure why, but something in the title resonated with her. At home, she opened the first chapter. It began with a story of two people from opposing sides of a political debate who found common ground through shared experiences. The story felt eerily relevant. As Claire read, her perspective began to shift, if only slightly. Meanwhile, Mark was preparing for another day of meetings. Before heading to his office, he decided to make a stop at the bistro. He wanted to speak with Amanda again and see how the team was doing after yesterday's incident. When he walked through the door, the staff straightened up, clearly aware of who he was. Mark noticed Claire at the back, her expression a mix of embarrassment and defiance. He nodded to Amanda, who approached him quickly. "Mr. Everly," Amanda greeted, her tone professional but warm. "It's good to see you again." "Likewise," Mark replied. "How's everything going?" "Busy as ever," Amanda said with a smile. "We've had a lot of bookings today." "Good to hear," Mark said, his gaze flicked to Claire. "Do you mind if I speak to Claire for a moment?" Amanda hesitated but nodded. "Of course, I'll let her know." Moments later, Claire found herself standing in front of Mark, her heart pounding. She had spent all night preparing what to say, but now her mind was blank. "Claire," Mark began, his tone even, "I wanted to speak with you about yesterday." I just want to say I'm sorry," Claire blurted out. "I shouldn't have let my personal feelings affect how I treated you. It was unprofessional and I regret it." Mark studied her, his expression unreadable. After a moment, he nodded. "Thank you for saying that. It takes courage to admit when you're wrong." Claire felt a small wave of relief but knew there was more to come. "Let me ask you something," Mark continued. "Why did you react so strongly to the hat?" Claire hesitated. It stands for things I can't support. It's hard to separate that from the person wearing it." Mark nodded slowly. "I understand. But let me tell you something. People are more than their hats or their clothes or even their political beliefs. I've worn this hat for years, and yes, it represents something I believe in, but it's not all of who I am." Claire looked down, unsure of how to respond. Mark's words were sinking in, but they weren't easy to accept. "I'm not here to punish you, Claire," Mark said gently. "I'm here to help you learn, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to do our best in a complicated world, and sometimes the best thing we can do is listen to each other." Claire nodded, tears stinging her eyes. "I'll do better," she promised. "I believe you will," Mark said with a faint smile, "and I'm willing to give you the chance to prove it." As Mark left the restaurant, Claire felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, gratitude, and a deep sense of responsibility. She knew she had a lot to learn, but for the first time in a long time, she felt ready to try. Claire spent the rest of her shift in a daze, replaying the conversation with Mark over and over in her mind. His words had struck a chord she hadn't anticipated, leaving her both humbled and unsettled. She had never considered the idea that someone could wear a symbol she despised and still be a person worth understanding. It was a jarring realization, one that followed her home and settled like a weight in her chest. As she walked through her apartment door, her cat Jasper greeted her with a chirp and a lazy stretch. Claire absent-mindedly scratched his head before collapsing onto the couch. The book she had picked up the night before, Breaking Down Barriers: How to Connect in a Divided World, lay on the coffee table. She picked it up, flipping through the pages until she found a section that seemed relevant: Empathy Across Divides. "We found them," Lee said. The chapter outlined stories of individuals from opposing political, cultural, or ideological backgrounds who managed to connect despite their differences. One story in particular caught Claire's eye. It was about a waitress from a small southern town who had been confronted with a customer wearing a Confederate flag pin. The woman had initially refused to serve him, but later discovered he was an advocate for community education programs, an issue she deeply cared about. The story mirrored Claire's own experience too closely to ignore. She closed the book, her mind swirling with questions. Who was Mark Everly really? Did she owe it to herself and to him to find out more about the man behind the hat? The next morning, Claire decided to take action. Before her shift, she sat down at her computer and began searching for information about Mark. What she found surprised her. Mark wasn't just the owner of Urban Haven Bistro. He was also a philanthropist, a mentor, and a vocal advocate for supporting small businesses. Articles detailed his efforts to provide jobs for struggling single parents, fund scholarships for culinary students, and spearhead initiatives to reduce food waste in the restaurant industry. One article in particular caught her attention. It described how Mark had personally mentored a young chef named Luis, who had been on the brink of homelessness. With Mark's guidance, Luis had gone on to open his own successful restaurant. The piece included a quote from Mark: "Everyone deserves a chance to succeed. Sometimes, all it takes is someone believing in you." Claire sat back in her chair, her emotions a tangled mess. She had judged Mark without knowing anything about him. Worse, she had denied him the basic courtesy she extended to strangers every day. Determined to make amends, Claire decided she needed to show Mark that she had learned from her mistake. But words didn't feel like enough. She needed to act. That afternoon, during her lunch break, Claire approached Amanda in the office. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice steady but urgent. Amanda looked up from her paperwork. "What's on your mind?" "I want to make things right with Mark," Claire said. "I've been thinking a lot about what he said, and I realize I was completely out of line. But I don't want to just apologize again. I want to show him I've learned." Amanda studied her for a moment, then nodded. "What do you have in mind?" "I've been reading about the initiatives he's been involved in," Claire said. "He's done so much for the community, and I think we can do something to support that. Maybe we could organize a charity event or a fundraiser, something that aligns with his values and shows that we're committed to making a difference." Amanda's expression softened into a smile. "That's a great idea, Claire. Let's make it happen." Over the next few weeks, Claire threw herself into organizing the event. She worked closely with Amanda and the rest of the staff to plan a community dinner at Urban Haven Bistro, with all proceeds going to a local food bank. Claire reached out to local businesses for sponsorships, created promotional materials, and even convinced a few of the restaurant's regular customers to volunteer their time. Then, she served breakfasts and, eventually, a meal and outdoors. The staff rallied behind the cause, their excitement infectious. Even the kitchen team, known for their gruff demeanor, seemed energized by the project. Claire's dedication didn't go unnoticed, and for the first time in weeks, she felt like she was part of something meaningful. As the event approached, Claire couldn't help but feel a mix of nerves and anticipation. She had invited Mark to attend, but he hadn't confirmed his presence. She hoped he would come. She needed him to see how much she had grown. The night of the event, Urban Haven Bistro was transformed. String lights hung from the ceiling, casting a warm glow over the space. Tables were arranged family style, with fresh flowers and handwritten place cards adding a personal touch. The kitchen was bustling, the staff moving with precision as they prepared the evening's menu. Guests began to arrive, filling the restaurant with laughter and conversation. Claire moved through the crowd, greeting attendees and ensuring everything ran smoothly. As the evening progressed, she found herself checking the door, hoping for a glimpse of Mark. Finally, just as the main course was being served, he appeared. He was dressed in his usual polished style, but he wasn't wearing the hat. Instead, he carried a donation check for the food bank. Claire's heart swelled with gratitude as she approached him. "Everly," she said, her voice filled with genuine warmth. "Thank you so much for coming." Mark smiled, handing her the check. "I wouldn't miss it. This is an incredible event, Claire. You should be proud." Claire's cheeks flush. "I just wanted to show you that I've learned from my mistake. I realized that judging people without understanding them isn't fair, and I wanted to do something that aligned with the values you've taught me." Mark nodded, his expression thoughtful. "It's not easy to admit when you're wrong, Claire, and it's even harder to take that lesson and turn it into something positive. You've done both." As the evening wound down, Claire found herself standing next to Mark, watching the guests enjoy their meals. The two shared a quiet moment, the hum of conversation and clinking glasses filling the air. "I read about you," Claire admitted. "About the work you've done in the community. It's inspiring." Mark chuckled. "I appreciate that, but I'm no saint. I've made my share of mistakes, just like anyone else. What matters is what we do with the lessons we learn." Claire nodded. "I think I'm starting to understand that." Mark turned to her, his expression serious but kind. "Keep going, Claire. This is just the beginning. You have the potential to make a real impact, not just here, but wherever life takes you." In the weeks that followed, Claire continued to grow. The success of the charity event had not only strengthened her relationship with Mark and Amanda, but had also reignited her passion for her work. She began taking on more responsibility, mentoring new staff members, and even attending workshops on leadership and communication. For the first time, Claire felt like she was truly living up to the ideals she had always claimed to value. And while she still held her beliefs, she had learned to approach others with empathy and an open mind. Mark, too, noticed the change in her. During one of his visits to the bistro, he pulled Claire aside and offered her a promotion to assistant manager. "You've proven yourself," he said simply. "I think you're ready for more." Claire accepted, her heart full of gratitude. As she looked around the restaurant, the place where her journey had begun, she felt a deep sense of purpose. She had come a long way, but she knew her story was far from over. And in the quiet moments, when the restaurant was closed and the world outside was still, Claire often thought of Mark's words. Everyone deserves a chance to succeed. Sometimes, all it takes is someone believing in you. The days following the charity event brought a renewed sense of energy to Urban Haven Bistro. The success of the evening had not only raised a significant amount for the food bank, but also solidified the team's sense of camaraderie. Claire, now an assistant manager, was eager to embrace her new role, but she knew the journey of personal growth wasn't something to be checked off a list. It was ongoing. Mark's belief in her potential had sparked a determination to continue evolving, but it also raised questions Claire hadn't fully answered. Who did she want to become? And how would she use the opportunities she had been given? Late one afternoon, after the lunch rush had settled, Claire found herself in the office reviewing the bistro's upcoming events calendar. Amanda entered, holding a steaming cup of coffee. "You've been on fire lately," Amanda said, setting the cup on the desk. "It's like you've unlocked a new level." Claire chuckled, running a hand through her hair. "I feel like I have, but it's also a little scary. I want to keep moving forward, but I don't want to mess up." Amanda leaned against the desk, her expression thoughtful. "You're allowed to make mistakes, Claire. That's how we learn. The important thing is how you handle them." Claire nodded, absorbing the advice. "Can I ask you something, Amanda?" "Of course. Have you ever felt like you weren't living up to your potential? Like you were stuck in one place when you were meant for more?" Amanda smiled softly. "More times than I can count. But I realized something important. More doesn't always mean something bigger. Sometimes it's about doing what you're already doing, but better. Finding meaning in the details." Claire considered her words, feeling a sense of clarity. Maybe she didn't need to have all the answers right now. Maybe it was okay to focus on doing her best in the moment. Later that week, Mark invited Claire to join him for lunch at a nearby cafe. The invitation surprised her, but she accepted, eager to learn more from the man who had become an unexpected mentor. The cafe was quaint and unassuming, a stark contrast to the bustling bistro. As they sat down, Mark ordered a black coffee and a simple sandwich. Claire opted for tea and a salad. "I wanted to talk to you about something," Mark began, his tone casual but deliberate. "You've made a lot of progress, Claire. It's impressive. But I think there's more you can do, not just here at the bistro, but in your life." Claire's brows furrowed. "What do you mean?" Mark leaned forward, his hands clasped. "You have leadership potential. I see it in how you connect with the team, how you've taken responsibility for your growth. But leadership isn't just about being in charge. It's about creating opportunities for others." Claire tilted her head, intrigued. "How do I do that?" "Start small," Mark advised. "Mentor someone on the team. Share what you've learned. When you lift others up, you create a ripple effect." The idea resonated with Claire. She had benefited from Mark's guidance. Maybe it was time to pay it forward. Claire took Mark's advice to heart. The following week, she approached Danny, a young server who had recently joined the team. Danny was bright and enthusiastic, but often second-guessed herself, especially during busy shifts. "Hey, Danny," Claire said one evening as they cleaned up after the dinner rush. "You've been doing great, but I noticed you seem a little nervous sometimes. Want to talk about it?" Danny hesitated, then nodded. "I just don't want to mess up, you know? Everyone here is so experienced, and I feel like I'm always behind." Claire smiled reassuringly. "Trust me, I've been there. When I started, I made every mistake in the book. But the good thing is, mistakes are part of the process. Let me show you a few tricks to make things easier." Over the next few weeks, Claire worked closely with Danny, offering tips and encouragement. Danny's confidence grew, and the transformation was evident. The experience was equally rewarding for Claire, who realized how fulfilling it was to help someone else succeed. One evening, after the restaurant had closed, Claire found herself alone in the dining room, reviewing the day's receipts. The quiet allowed her to reflect on how much her perspective had shifted. She thought back to the moment when she first saw Mark walk in with his MAGA hat. The anger and judgment she had felt then seemed so far removed from the person she was now. Her thoughts were interrupted when Amanda entered, holding a folder. "Got a minute?" she asked. Claire nodded, setting the receipts aside. "I wanted to show you this," Amanda said, handing her the folder. Inside were proposals for a new community outreach initiative, a partnership with local schools to teach culinary skills to students. "We've been talking about doing something like this for a while," Amanda explained. "I think it's time to move forward, and I'd like you to lead the project." Claire's eyes widened. "Me?" "Yes, you," Amanda said with a grin. "You've proven you're ready, and I think this is the perfect way for you to take the next step." Claire's heart raced with a mix of excitement and nervous. The project was ambitious, but it was exactly the kind of challenge she had been craving. She nodded, her confidence building. "I'd love to. Thank you for trusting me with this." Over the next few months, Claire poured herself into the initiative. She partnered with local schools, worked with the kitchen team to develop lesson plans, and even brought Mark on board as a guest speaker. The program was a hit, giving students hands-on experience in the culinary arts and inspiring some to consider careers in the field. Through it all, Claire continued to grow, both personally and professionally. She learned to balance her strong convictions with a deeper sense of empathy, realizing that understanding others didn't mean compromising her values. It meant strengthening them. One day, as she prepared for a meeting with the school board, Claire received an unexpected message from Mark. It was a simple text, "Proud of you. Keep going." She smiled, the words filling her with a sense of purpose. Mark's mentorship had been a catalyst, but the journey was her own, and for the first time, Claire felt truly ready to embrace it. As she walked into the meeting, head held high and heart open, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. As the months rolled on, Claire found herself at the center of a vibrant transformation within Urban Haven Bistro. The outreach program she led had become a cornerstone of the restaurant's identity, and its success was creating ripples far beyond their doors. Community members who had once walked past the bistro without a second thought now stopped to admire the posted schedules of student workshops and charity dinners. The place was alive with purpose, and Claire's role in that change hadn't gone unnoticed. What surprised Claire the most was how much she was learning from the students. Their questions often challenged her assumptions, forcing her to think more critically about her own beliefs and methods. One student, Matteo, stood out in particular. A shy but determined 16-year-old. Matteo dreamed of becoming a chef, despite his family's insistence that he pursue a more practical career. During one workshop, Matteo lingered after the session ended, nervously shuffling his feet as he waited to speak with Claire. "Miss Claire?" He began hesitantly. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course, Matteo, what's on your mind?" Claire replied, setting down a stack of cutting boards. "What made you decide to do this, like teach us and help us? You could just focus on running the restaurant." The question caught Claire off guard. She paused, considering her response. "I guess it's because someone once gave me a chance when I didn't deserve it," she said finally. "And they helped me see that there's more to life than staying in your comfort zone. I want to do the same for you and everyone else who walks through these doors." Matteo nodded thoughtfully. "Thanks, that means a lot." Watching him walk away, Claire felt a swell of pride. She realized that her own journey had equipped her with the tools to empower others, and that knowledge filled her with a sense of fulfillment she'd never experienced before. Not everyone in Claire's world was thrilled with the changes she was undergoing. Lily, her best friend, had been increasingly distant since the charity event. The two had always bonded over their shared convictions, but Lily seemed to view Claire's newfound openness as a betrayal of their ideals. One evening, Claire decided to confront the issue head-on. She invited Lily over for dinner, determined to have an honest conversation. "I feel like we haven't really talked in a while," Claire said as they sat down with steaming bowls of homemade pasta. Lily shrugged, poking at her food. "I guess we've both been busy." "It's more than that," Claire pressed gently. "You've been pulling away ever since everything happened with the restaurant." Lily set her fork down, her expression tense. It's just hard to watch you change, Claire. You used to stand for something, and now it feels like you're compromising. Claire frowned. Is that really what you think? That I've stopped standing for my beliefs? Lily hesitated. I don't know. You're working with people like Mark, people who don't see the world the way we do, Claire finished. I get it, Lily, I really do. But working with Mark hasn't changed what I believe. It's changed how I approach those beliefs. I've learned that you can't build bridges by burning them. Lily looked away, her expression conflicted. I just don't want you to lose who you are. I'm not losing who I am, Claire said firmly. I'm becoming more of who I want to be. The conversation ended on a tentative note, with both women agreeing to give each other space. Claire was saddened by the distance growing between them, but she knew that staying true to her path meant accepting that not everyone would understand it. A few weeks later, Mark approached Claire with a new opportunity. The Urban Haven brand was expanding, and Mark wanted her to take on a leadership role at a new location in a neighboring city. It's a big step, Mark said as they sat in the bistro's office. But I think you're ready. You've proven that you're not just a great manager, you're a leader. This could be a chance for you to shape something from the ground up. Claire's initial reaction was excitement, quickly followed by doubt. She had grown so attached to the current bistro and the team she had helped build. Could she really leave it all behind and start fresh? I don't know, Mark, she admitted. I love what we've created here. It feels like home. Mark smiled knowingly. That's exactly why you should consider it. You've built something amazing here, and now it's time to see if you can do it again somewhere else. The decision weighed heavily on Claire's mind over the next few days. She sought advice from Amanda, who had become both a mentor and a friend. It's scary, Claire confessed during a coffee break. What if I fail? What if I'm not ready? Amanda chuckled. Claire, I've seen you face bigger challenges than this. If anyone can handle it, it's you. And even if you stumble, you'll pick yourself up. That's what leaders do. Claire nodded, the encouragement bolstering her confidence. She realized that growth often required taking risks, and this opportunity was too important to pass up. The following month, Claire began her new role as the general manager of Urban Haven's second location. The space was larger and more modern than the original bistro, but it lacked the warmth and character that made the first location so special. Claire knew it was up to her to change that. She started by meeting with the staff, a mix of seasoned professionals and eager newcomers. Among them was a head chef named Priya, whose culinary skills were matched only by her no-nonsense attitude. I'll be honest, Priya said during their first meeting, I wasn't thrilled about having a new manager come in, but I've heard good things about you, so I'm willing to give this a shot. Fair enough, Claire replied with a smile. Let's prove each other right. Together, they worked to create a menu that combined the bistro's signature dishes with local flavors. Claire also introduced community-focused initiatives such as hosting pop-up dinners featuring local farmers and artisans. Slowly but surely, the new location began to take on a personality of its own. One evening, as Claire locked up the restaurant, she received a text from Mateo. He had just started culinary school, thanks to a scholarship funded by Urban Haven's outreach program. Thank you for believing in me, the text read. I wouldn't be here without you. Claire's chest tightened with emotion. She replied simply, You earned it, keep going. Moments like these reminded her why she had chosen this path. It wasn't about the accolades or the promotions. It was about making a difference, one person at a time. Months later, as Claire stood in the bustling kitchen of the new Urban Haven Bistro, watching her team work with precision and passion, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The restaurant was thriving, but more importantly, it was becoming a place where people felt valued, whether they were customers, staff, or members of the community. Mark visited occasionally, always with a smile and a word of encouragement. During one visit, he pulled Claire aside and said, You've done it again. I'm proud of you. Thank you, Claire replied, her voice steady but full of gratitude. But I couldn't have done it without the lessons I've learned. From you, from Amanda, from everyone. Mark nodded. That's the key, Claire. Leadership isn't about doing it all yourself. It's about learning, growing, and helping others do the same. As Claire watched him leave, she realized how far she had come from the fiery waitress who had once judged him by a hat. Her journey wasn't over, but she was ready for whatever came next. And as she stepped back into the kitchen, the hum of activity surrounding her, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. Want more? Check out the video on screen for another amazing story and hit subscribe to stay updated with our newest content.
you.